Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dissecting Dance, Kicking It with Rand podcast, the podcast that opens up discussions about topics in dance. The goal of this podcast is to allow dancers and non dancers alike to think about dance from new perspectives, as well as leaving room for discussion. Enjoy the show! Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Dissecting Dance, Kicking It with Rand podcast. I almost forgot my name of the podcast. Oopsies. So today we have a special guest on the show. Ryan, say hi.
Hi everyone, I'm Ryan.
So it's very I have trouble explaining people's dance backgrounds. So Ryan, why don't you tell everyone about your, background in dance?
Yeah, I guess I started dancing when I was 17, 18 years old. So I had a sister who had danced her whole life, and that was really inspiring to me. And finally, I bit the bullet and decided to jump in and take classes just once a week. And then from there, I went to UMBC college and started as a visual art major. And then after a year of being dissatisfied with that, I transitioned into the dance major. And yeah, that's how I started.
That's awesome. And what kind of cool opportunities have you have you done since you graduated with the dance major?
Yeah, so I actually graduated with just the dance major. So I kind of forced myself to exclusively pursue that career. And so after graduation, I actually stayed in the Maryland area to continue training. Since I'd only really been dancing the past 3 or 4 years, I felt like I needed to kind of have more of a foundation behind my dance training. So I stayed around the area and continued to train at UMBC and elsewhere. And then from there, I also traveled around this country and out of the country to take more classes, gain more experiences, and that really aided in my venture to pursue dance professionally.
Cool. Thank you for that. So that was the introduction part. I always like to, in all of my episodes, I like to have either a fun fact or ask a trivia question. Would you like me to test you, or would you just like me to say the fact?
Oh gosh. Dancer's choice, whatever you prefer.
Okay. I'll ask you a question. This is a multiple answer question, but what is one material that point shoes are made out of?
What is one material? Oh my gosh. Wood? Is that
Not
incorrect?
anymore.
Not anymore.
I was gonna say satin. Or
Satin. Yeah.
or plaster.
Oh yeah, I guess now it's plaster, not wood.
Yeah. They're kind of made like paper mache, which is
Yes.
kind of cool.
Yes.
It's so fun how that works.
I've only tried on one pair of point shoes before in my life, and only one of my feet could handle going on point.
It's also funny how that works. I find when I'm on point, I feel pain on only one foot.
Yeah,
and it's always my right foot.
I have a ragingly my left foot is ragingly better than my right. It's they're not even that similar. It's one is just so much different than the other.
That is so funny. Okay. So I guess the main topic of this is just an interview on your experiences as being a dancer, especially as someone who started later than the average dancer would.
Yes.
So I guess my first question to you is, what are you doing in the dance industry as of now?
Yeah, so things have shifted, I guess not considerably since I graduated, but I guess currently now I teach dance full time. So I'm really delving into, I guess, that arena in dance. I'm teaching full time, and I also work with 2 project-based dance companies. So I'll travel either to New York or I'll drive to DC to work on those projects.
Did you say pageant?
Projects.
Project.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Definitely not pageant.
I was like, pageant? Oh, that's a new one.
So yeah, I teach full time and I work with a couple of project-based companies, and then I also choreograph a lot as well, and I do painting commissions as well.
Awesome. I can see like when I check like when I'm on your Instagram, I always wondered like where the art came from. I never knew you started out as like a visual arts major.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
was
yeah.
yeah, I did visual art like my whole life, took
Hmm.
drawing classes, art classes, and was very passionate about it, I guess, in my younger years. And then
Hmm.
I went through this like 5 year period of just I didn't draw, I didn't pick up a pencil. I was just really I wasn't feeling inspired by it
Hmm.
anymore at the time. And then once COVID came about, I dove back into painting.
That's very understandable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I just needed a bit
Yeah.
more life experience and time away from that to really find my love for it again.
Yeah, and I find that dance is like the same way too. Like a lot I know people who have like taken a like I don't know how long, but they'll take a hiatus from dance and it what they have found is that it really helps them. Um,
Yeah, I think starting dance very late in my life, I was starting dance
mhm.
at in a very different mindset than a lot of my peers. I noticed a lot of my peers who had been dancing their whole life were starting to
Mhm.
feel that burnout
Yeah.
as I was just starting dance. And I think now that I've danced for at least 10 years now, I'm starting to feel that burnout and
Mhm.
understand um the necessity of taking breaks or
Right.
yeah. So I feel like I'm in that point of my life now.
Yeah. I definitely think like I mean me being a dance major, like those summer breaks are very nice.
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the breaks are nice mentally, physically. Also,
Mhm.
you get to venture out and maybe experience something outside of your own bubble,
Mhm.
which I found very beneficial for my dance career in general. But I think when I was starting out in dance in college, I look back and I think positively about the passion, like just such burning passion
Mhm.
for dance. And
Mhm.
I appreciate that dedication that I had in myself, but also it was so unhealthy.
Mhm.
And it was this mindset of I'm coming into the game so late that I need to overcompensate and do extreme things in order to feel like I'm at the
Mhm.
same level as these dancers who had been training their whole life.
Gotcha, gotcha. I find that a lot of people who start dance late, and this is just something I've noticed like at my former studio too, is that people who start late tend to bounce back or they tend to bounce in very quickly. And
Yes, you're forced to. Yeah,
yeah.
you kind of have no choice.
Yeah. That checks out, especially like in the dance world.
Yeah.
So what styles of dance do you do? Slash teach?
So again, I feel like a lot of my dancing just happened not even by my choice, just given the circumstances that I was
Mhm.
in. So I did like competitive dance in a dance studio for a couple years, just since I had really started dance more seriously my
Mhm.
senior year of high school. And even at, I guess, a dance studio that offers a variety of styles, I was so overwhelmed starting dance so late that I really stuck to more contemporary based, modern based dancing.
Mhm.
And I think also just I was enticed by the idea of contemporary in general because it kind of provided more freedom to the
Yeah.
dancer, especially for someone like myself who didn't have years of training. I was
Mhm.
really drawn to contemporary dance for that reason, and that's why I continued to pursue that in college as well.
Nice. And I definitely think that contemporary is very much a an opportunity for, dancers to not really play by the rules. And when I say rules, I mean ballet, like the ballet aesthetic. And I think
Yeah,
that
that
yeah.
was yeah, that was very difficult. I have a more positive mindset on ballet and
Mhm.
I guess ballet in particular, just because in college was so discouraged
Hmm.
and it was just like this like slap in the face every time I would take ballet, and it was just like, why it turned into a very much a self kind of hatred
Hmm.
of, why can't my body do this, why don't I look this way, and and for some people, they really admire the structure and
Hmm.
of ballet, and I've learned to kind of love that routine now as an adult.
Hmm.
But I think at the time it just really ate away
Yeah.
at my confidence and my abilities as a dancer in terms of what my body can do. And it took me a long time to really appreciate my body for what it is,
Hmm.
and the strengths that I have outside of that
Yeah.
perception of ballet.
Yeah. And you're definitely not alone with that. Like I know quite a
Oh,
few people
absolutely,
who are
yeah.
like, why can't my body do that? Like for me, it's my focus and my arms.
Uh,
My arm
yeah,
when
we
it
all
comes,
have our own thing.
yeah, when it comes to arms, like my head just can't be in the right spot and my arms are a train wreck. But I feel like being dancers, you kind of learn to, well, for me specifically, I kind of learned to just laugh at myself. Like, what are my arms doing?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it's dance is an art form. We're not curing cancer over here.
Hmm.
So we have to have the ability to kind of laugh at ourselves
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. So if there were any, you said that you're more like you're very much contemporary, but if you were to learn any other dance style with the snap of a finger, are there any particular dance styles that you would like to learn?
Oh yeah, I've always been so interested in tap. I really
Hmm.
wish that I had taken more classes in tap. I would go to dance conventions and I would be the dancer on the carpet in my bare feet
Hmm.
trying to do tap,
Hmm.
but I never owned a pair of tap shoes. So yeah, I've dabbled in other styles just as a
Hmm.
dancer, but I think if I were to focus on one style outside of contemporary, I would choose tap.
Tap is fun.
Yeah,
It, yeah.
I really am intrigued by like all of the intricacies and sounds of the feet, and I
Hmm.
think that would be really it would be very much out of my comfort zone.
Hmm. Yeah. Something that they don't tell you about tap is how much, because I actually just started tap like
Oh, really?
a semester ago. Yeah. And people don't tell you how much pain it causes to your shins specifically.
Yeah, no, I can
Like,
definitely see
yeah.
that.
Like, I don't know why I went into it thinking, oh, yeah, feet, tap, tap, not tap, tap, ow, shins, hurt, pain.
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't
Yeah.
think of it being super physical,
Yeah.
but I can see how it would cause a lot of pain in the
Yeah.
shin area.
It's very fun. You should definitely start, I think. Uh,
Yeah, never
um,
too late.
never too late. So you said that so I'm curious to know like your experiences being in competition dance because I have never done competition dance. Competition dance is not something that it's just not my thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Never. So I guess, and also for people watching, like what is the competition dance scene like?
Yeah, so I think the competition dance scene has changed and evolved since I was a dancer in competition. I know when I was a dancer in competition, the styles were definitely different than they are now. It was very I think competition dance was rooted very much in physicality, and
Hmm.
I guess from the outside in, people would say tricks. So when I was in competitive dance, it was very much about how many pirouettes you can do,
Hmm.
how many flips can you do,
Hmm.
and I do feel like some of those things were beneficial to me. Definitely the competitive aspect, performing on a stage in front of other people at competitions, I thought was good practice and good exposure in the performative sense.
Hmm.
But I think now being a teacher to students who are doing competitive dance today, it's definitely changed and evolved, and I'm seeing more and more dancers at these competitions really exploring their artistry in terms of dance movement.
That is great to see.
Yes, it's been
Yeah.
so wonderful and so amazing for this younger age group to really experience that at a young age,
Hmm.
and look at dance already in such a beautiful art form rather than it just being about the physical body.
Right. I actually thought that it was like the other way. So I thought that dance competitions were about artistry instead of like, but I thought it went like I thought it was
Oh,
switched.
really?
Yeah, because I was an avid Dance Moms watcher.
Oh,
And
yes. Oh,
that so
gosh.
that
I
so that's
have unfortunately, I have like a master's degree in dance modeling. I could recite any line from that show. I could name any dance from that show.
that is so that, I mean, I think that's fantastic.
It's a special talent of mine for sure.
But yeah, I definitely like that was my exposure to dance competitions and obviously like me trying to figure out what they actually were. Dance, I feel like Dance Moms and dance competitions, like they're definitely not one and the same.
No, I think I mean Dance Moms did air now, like what, 8 to 10 years ago, so it is a
At
bit
least 10.
more, yeah, it is a bit more reflective of dance at that time in terms of competition dance, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's definitely changed and evolved heavily since that time.
That's good. I'm glad to see that competitions are becoming more artistic and not just a like gymnastics competition
Yeah,
type
no,
thing.
yes, I would really confidently say that I've seen so much progress since my time as a dancer in dance competitions.
That's awesome. Okay. So I guess my next question. So I guess how are you able to start booking opportunities as like a performer, a choreographer, etc.?
Yeah, so I won't lie and say that it's been easy. It's been very difficult for me personally. And not that, and my experience is very much my experience. So I would not press this upon other people's experience
Hmm.
because those are always going to be different. But in my experience in general, booking jobs as a dance performer has been very difficult. I've really I think I've booked 99% of my jobs through social media.
Nice.
So I really haven't ever like gone to an audition and actually gotten the job from an
Hmm.
audition, which is kind of crazy.
Hmm.
As a dancer, I've really gotten 99% of my jobs either through people looking at my dancing on Instagram, or there's been a couple instances where I've gotten cut from an audition and someone on the panel will pull me aside afterward and ask me to collaborate with them just from seeing me at that audition. But I've never actually gone to an audition and gotten the job in
Hmm.
the conventional sense.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, so I think with that, you just have to be, and I think part of that, there's so many different things that I could go on a tangent with that is, but I think that me starting dance later in life combined with going to a state school and not an art school,
Hmm.
I found that to be quite difficult in the audition world,
Hmm.
and that kind of trickles down into choreographing too. That's also been difficult for me to really put myself out there. But on a more positive note, I think that the jobs that I have gotten through dance or choreography have been really genuine and really connection based, which is really beautiful. I think that particularly in Maryland, where I'm teaching a lot now, everyone here is very supportive
Hmm.
and always willing to give recommendations. And that's something that I really appreciate. So I think a lot of the jobs that I've gotten, particularly in Maryland, have been connection based to either friends or past colleagues or university graduate alumni. We've all kept in contact and been really great about connecting each other.
That's great. And yeah, Maryland is definitely like very arts focused, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Surprisingly, it's. I think everyone is really genuine here about their support for each other.
mhm. Yeah.
I think also to expand upon that, a couple of the project-based company work that I've done have been so fulfilling just because we are, I guess, it's not a conventional audition in the sense that you get picked to be in this huge repertory company. You feel this personal connection to this small group of dancers with the project-based work that I've done, and those have been definitely some of the highlights of my dance career. So I think a lot of people go into approaching a dance career or post graduation with a
Mm-hmm.
lot of big hopes in terms of
Yeah.
what their dance work as a performer will be like. And it's great to have those big aspirations, but I've also found that some of the most fulfilling work that I've done as a dance performer has been with those smaller project-based companies.
Yeah, and I definitely know that, especially because when I was younger, I definitely wanted to be a performer. Not anymore. Like I don't want to do that full-time company stuff anymore. But
Uh-huh.
but I remember like I think you told me this at one point that like getting into like a full-time dance company is a lot harder than you would think it would be.
Oh yeah, it can be like winning the lottery.
Yeah. Right. And I think it takes a lot of like it just takes a lot to get into a company like that, especially with like biases
Yeah,
and all that
there's so much
stuff. It's
biases, and it's so connection based. It's just so many circumstances that are
hmm
completely out of your control. So I
yeah.
think you're doing a really big disservice to yourself as a person and as an artist if you're kind of not able to be flexible
Yeah.
uh, and finding alternative methods of doing what you love,
Right.
because that opportunity is very limited to a specific group of people.
Right. I'm interested to learn more about like your project based stuff. So like you said that
Yeah.
you said that you were approached like either through social media or you were pulled aside at an audition. So when you would be reached out to through social media, like would they just slide into your DMs and be like, "Hey, do you want to do this?"
Yeah, actually, crazy enough, that's basically how it worked.
hmm
I was like freshly moved into New York City when I was 24, and I went to like 8 auditions, didn't get anything, and then suddenly a contemporary company that I had admired for years at the time and had auditioned for prior to that year and got cut. They reached out to me on Instagram and they were like, "Hey, we actually have an opening for a project coming up. Can you learn this 6-minute duet in 2 days and then perform it on stage?" And they had never even, met me or
hmm
seen my dancing in person. They really just put all of their faith in me to learn this piece and perform it in 2 days.
hmm
So I thought that was crazy. And yeah, and so aside from that, the other project based companies, I've one of them in DC, which is called Priori Dance. He is on faculty at a mutual studio that we teach at, so he had known me from there. And then another group that I'm currently dancing with called House of Pavement in Brooklyn, New York. I had known the director from a previous company, and then he saw me audition for another company at an audition, and then
hmm
reached out to me afterward to ask to dance for his company.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
really just never know. You just have to show up.
So it's really just about putting yourself out there.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the more yeses that you can affirm to yourself, like, yes, I am going to show up,
hmm
really is, especially in this career in dance where it's so connection based, it's so much
Yeah.
about connecting with other people, that I think just even going to an audition, you'll meet new people, you'll experience something new, and I think that's really
Yeah.
important in this field.
Absolutely. And I do find like and that completely like makes sense. And it's cool that you like I would say you're pretty successful. Like, as like a
I would not. I maybe would not say that. But thank you for that.
I mean, from my perspective, I would say you are.
Yeah, I think
Um,
not, maybe not in the generic term of successful, but I think that I've tried to live a creative life, and I've tried to
mhm,
make the most of it. And
mhm,
I think that we all have those moments where we feel like we're not doing enough, or we feel like we're not capitalizing on our careers or on our abilities, but I am
mhm.
very happy with a lot of the work
Yeah,
that I have done and the work that I'm still trying to do.
yeah. Generic is so boring. That's what I like to
Yeah.
say. I mean, imagine. I mean, having auditioning for just any old high level dance company. That's so stereotypical. Project based.
Yeah,
That's
I
new
mean,
and different.
I was funny. I think a lot of artists also like secretly love like that struggle of like I've like it's funny because I think we're all just dissatisfied. If when we're
Mhm.
not working, we're dissatisfied. When we're working a lot, we're dissatisfied. And I think a lot of the dancers that have those secure full-time jobs are still dissatisfied and
Mm,
they
yeah,
miss that struggle, they miss that artist rigor.
yeah. I could, especially when if they were like a principal ballet dancer, it's like that means they've like hit the top, and so it's like, what else am I supposed to do? I can
Exactly.
imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that definitely makes sense.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, when you struggle, I feel like dance is all about struggling. Like if you
Yeah.
don't struggle
It's
through it, you're not gonna get it. So definitely, I think that struggling is a very monumental part of a dancer's life. Like you
yeah,
have to be, yeah,
dance and struggle are synonymous words.
yes, same thing.
Yes.
So, trying to struggle, blah blah blah. Hold on.
Yeah, you're fine.
So, you also wanted to talk about, being in a dance career with chronic pain. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, so because I started dance so late, I definitely I had played competitive soccer and sports my whole life, and my body had definitely formed and hardened into that
Hmm.
structure. So when I was trying to segue into dance, my body was just so resistant because it's just such a different way of moving, and your muscles
Hmm.
are stretched and formed a completely different way as a dancer. And so I was really kind of going against nature in a sense, and I ended up partially tearing both of my hamstrings
Ouch.
in the first year that I had started dancing.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it was just a really difficult time. And a lot of doctors and therapists were very adamant on that I should stop dancing. This isn't something that I should do and try to pursue. And
Hmm.
if I did try to pursue it, it would be really difficult for me. And they definitely were not wrong.
Hmm.
But I was just very stubborn and um and I was like, no, this is something that I really want to do. And so yeah, that really, I don't want to say it dictated my life, but it really did kind of navigate me
Hmm.
to dance completely differently, to choreograph differently, to really, in a way, I think at the time it felt like my injury was kind of taking over my life in a way,
Hmm.
and it was really difficult for me to just function as a dancer, as a person in my everyday life, because the pain was so bad.
Hmm.
And so through all of that, obviously, as a professional dancer,
Hmm.
it was extremely difficult to continue physically and also more so mentally. There were just so many, times and that I probably sat out from dance more than I was actually dancing.
Hmm.
In college, in a lot of my professional career, I've really had to know my limits and be aware
Hmm.
of those limits. And I think as people, we don't like limits. We don't like thinking of ourselves as
Yeah.
having as
Hmm.
having obstacles. And so I really had to be honest with myself and be patient with those limits and just try my best to work around them, and also and just be happy and be thankful for the body that I do have, because I
Hmm.
am still able to dance,
Yeah.
and which is a beautiful thing. But yes, it's always something that has been very difficult for me, just in life and also in dance.
So you said that like this injury, like it happened, it was just kind of like something that happened throughout your career. So
Yeah.
how did the the when I say authority, but I really mean like the company directors, the
Mhm.
choreographers, the teachers, like how did they accommodate for that, if they did accommodate for that?
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's something that I've really taken with me in terms
Hmm.
of teaching, just because of the experiences I've had.
Hmm.
It's taught me a lot about the body and how to handle those
Hmm.
situations with people that are struggling with those chronic injuries. And I think in college, it's really difficult in college because you're graded based on your participation in class.
Hmm.
and and at one point in college, the injury was so bad that I was, on crutches, or I just was
Hmm.
in so much pain that I wasn't able to healthfully participate in class. And the head of our department really tried to advocate for me to have physical therapy through the sports teams at
We
the
stan.
university, and they did not, they were not willing to do
We don't
that.
stand that.
So the sports teams, at least, they didn't want to cross those bridges. And so I think that was really difficult for me at the time, because it forced me to continue dancing even though
Hmm.
my body was in a really unhealthy state. And I think in the professional world, I have been lucky that with the project-based companies that I've worked with, they've been really understanding of that,
Hmm.
and they really work around that. And I think a lot of that is because the work is so intimate and collaborative, and we're usually creating, which is
Hmm.
helpful. I think I've found a lot of difficulty in auditioning or working with more repertory companies where the work is more solidified and they're
Hmm.
not as willing to adjust something for each dancer.
Gotcha. So it's really cool to hear that that you have received support like when it came to your injury and stuff like that. So so how do you deal with it now? Like is the pain still there? Like how are you like taking care of it now?
Yeah, I've learned so much along the years in terms of how to take care of this particular injury. And I think what's been successful for me now has been years of taking care of it. I've
Mhm.
definitely added up to where I am now, but I try to get biweekly massages, which was like a big
Mhm.
thing that I finally decided to do because they are expensive. But
Yeah.
I did find them to be super beneficial. Even just a lot of the pain that I experience with the hamstring tears is just something as simple as sitting down in a chair is like super painful for
Yeah.
me. And with all the driving that I do, I had noticed that the biweekly massages were really easing my pain, even just sitting down in a chair. So that's something that I try to be consistent with. I definitely could be better about that, but I try to be
Yeah.
somewhat consistent with getting massages. And then I've spent years trying to find a stretching routine that works for me, because in particular with torn hamstrings, stretching is very difficult.
Yeah.
And so I've been finding a lot more benefits to certain yoga practices. And in the past, yoga had always injured me, so I'm trying to find that balance of stretch and strength, and with yoga in particular. So I
Yeah.
think that's something that I've I've noticed some improvements in. And then in terms of just full body range of motion, I like to do a lot of Gaga and just improvisation
Mm-hmm.
based movement in my body. And I found that to be very beneficial in terms of irregular, I guess, flexibility of the
Mm-hmm.
body, not just thinking conventionally in terms of how high can my leg go, but how much space can I have in my pelvis or in my rib cage. And I think those finding more range in my body through movement has also helped kind of take the pressure off of myself, because I think it was becoming such a negative,
Mm-hmm.
I guess when I would enter a room, it would be very discouraging for me to have to constantly modify a
Yeah.
class. And it's something that I still struggle with now. It's really difficult for me to enter new dance spaces because I instantly become self-conscious of
Mm-hmm.
how much of this class am I going to have to modify? How much of this class am I going to have to sit out for?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge fear in terms of judgment of others, but also just I know that it is really easy for me to injure myself, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be really disciplined in,
Yeah.
although this might feel good in the moment, I have to think long term about what is good for my body.
Right.
Yeah.
And and ultimately, it's I feel like if people first off, if people were to be judgmental, why are they judging you and not trying to figure out what they're doing wrong while they're actively dancing?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
as I've gotten older, at my big age of 29 now, I realize that most people are just taking class for themselves and they're not really
Yeah.
paying attention to you at all, which is comforting. But yeah, I think in the professional atmosphere, I really took that to heart and was really discouraged that I think because as a professional, you're
Mhm.
encouraged to be well rounded and to be able to do as many things as you possibly can. And that was just something that I had always felt extremely limited by with the
Mhm.
injuries that I had.
It's also very difficult to be like versatile because I've heard that too. I've
Yeah.
heard versatility, and
And
I
not everyone can be good at everything. It's just
right, right. I hear versatility, and I'm like, I am literally, I understand, but my body doesn't move like that.
yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's something that's preached to us often as dancers. And I think that
Hmm.
it is great. I think it's great to throw yourself into discomfort and to be as versatile as you can. But I think that, it can create this kind of false sense of perfection that some of us just
Yeah.
can't achieve.
Right. Right. Yeah. And no one's perfect.
Yeah, so I think just
Yeah.
doing the best. I think doing the best with what you're given, and being realistic about that. I don't expect myself to be a professional ballet dancer, but
Hmm.
I am taking class with a lot of intention and with the idea of bettering
Yeah.
myself, in terms of what my body can do.
Yeah. I was gonna say something about ballet. Oh, I mean, when I take a ballet class, I never like I know that I'm not going to become like a ballet dancer. Um,
Yes.
like I came in like especially like in college, I discovered that like, full-time professional dancing was not for me. But, I it's still the idea of like going to a class and feeling like you're improving. I feel like
Yes.
that is like I feel like that ultimately is like the most rewarding part of being a dancer is like when you're in class and you finally get that triple pirouette once in a blue moon. uh, I know other dancers feel that one. Oh, triples are tricky.
Yeah, no, there's
um,
definitely something to be said about those little moments where you can acknowledge that you're proud of where you are and you recognize the work that you've put into something and you
mhm,
start to see little glimmers of that work.
yeah. So as an adult, who is still like you're still looking to like take dance classes. So how like, has it been difficult to find classes that are like geared toward adults?
Yes, I think that's also just given the nature of being an adult and having more responsibilities. You don't have as much
Hmm.
free time for class because you're probably working.
Yeah.
So for me, being a dance teacher, I try to participate in class as much as I
Hmm.
can, obviously, while still being a teacher and teaching my students and making sure that the focus is on them. But I also try to do as much of the warm up as I can and really take class for myself a little bit too. So
Hmm.
that's sometimes how I get my training in,
Yeah.
because I am teaching full time. So it can be hard for me to have the energy to go to take class, the same day as I'm also teaching. But I will try to still go to. Luckily, UMBC is really great about letting alumni come take class. So
Hmm.
sometimes I'll take class at the university, or I will take class in New York when I'm visiting there. And also I'll take kind of online class sometimes. So I'll do like a
Hmm.
Zoom, I'll do a Zoom Gaga class. And that is something that I'm fine with doing. But yeah, it can be difficult to feel like you have a consistent training schedule as an adult because just given the confines of adulthood.
Hmm. Yeah. Not looking not looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's definitely you have to motivate yourself a lot.
Yeah. Uh, okay. So I'm curious. So what is Gaga?
Oh
Like,
gosh. I'm not going to give the most like uh intelligent explanation on this, but
you're fine.
um but basically Gaga is a dance that Ohad Naharin started, uh, of movement exploration, when he was still a young professional dancer, and that grew into his company, which is now Batsheva Dance Company in Tel Aviv. Yeah, it's hard to describe it without a kind of visual representation of what Gaga is.
Yeah.
But it's really, for lack of better words, just a movement improvisation based research of the
Okay.
body.
Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
of the classes are guided from a Gaga instructor who is certified in Gaga, and they basically just take you on this improvisation journey, um, to find
Hmm.
to find pleasure and to find space in your body. And I have found for myself that, especially if you are aware of you have body awareness as a dancer, I have found that it has helped me ease a lot of pain in my body.
Nice. I was just curious. I
Yeah.
like yeah. I'll definitely look into that. I mean, I've heard the name Gaga, but I was
Mhm.
like, ooh. I've never actually seen it or have done it ever.
Yeah, it's really fun. And it's for everyone. Like I've had my boyfriend who is not a trained dancer take class with me, and he's really enjoyed it.
That is such a sleigh though.
Yeah, he's actually come to take a couple university classes,
Hmm.
and we've danced in the studio together as well, and that's been really great just
Hmm.
to dance with a body that isn't trained in dance, and yeah, it's really fun.
Gotcha. So one of the things you like talked about earlier was like when you would have to get like massages for you would have to get like your biweekly massages and you said that they're quite expensive. So
Yes.
yeah. So financially like financial wise being a dancer
Mhm.
choreographer, being just in the dance industry as a whole as your career, how is
Yes.
that going financially? Like or what is it like?
It's I'm learning more and more, like it's just very up and down, and you really have to be okay with that, I think.
Hmm.
And maybe one day it will be a bit more stable or a
Mm-hmm.
bit more consistent, but I've just really come to the realization that it is going to be very up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think last year especially, I was coming from, I think post-pandemic, last year was really the first year that I had started to dance and teach full time,
Mm-hmm.
and that wasn't really planned, it just kind of happened, and I felt like I was in a very stable financial place, and I very naively assumed that that
Mm-hmm.
may continue into this year. And yeah, it definitely has not. So that's been really challenging to, okay, now I'm not doing exactly what I was doing last year, so how can I uh what is the plan moving forward? And maybe it's not even having the same financial freedom or success that I had the previous year, but maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
focusing on something else, or, finding a different means of income, or, you just have to be flexible with those shifts of high and low in terms of income. But yeah, as a dancer in New York, I did struggle a lot financially just because a lot of the project-based companies I was working with, you can't earn a sustainable living, based on that income alone. So I was working multiple jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and and aside from the pandemic, it was also just the financial constraints that I decided to move back to Maryland and really redirect my career in terms of financial stability. And
Yeah.
yeah.
New York is also like for the amount of art that New York has, like living there is way too expensive.
It is. It's
Like
like one of
yeah.
those, yeah, it's one of those things where you really have to just go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that I did live there, and it was a really great experience in terms of the art and culture and the people, and I am really appreciative of all of those experiences. But I think just in terms of where we're living at today in society, you have to think a bit more in terms of like what you can sustain.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we do have rent to pay, and we do have bills and things in our life. And so, yeah, I think that although I am working in the arts and it is my passion, it's also a
Mm-hmm.
job. And
Yeah.
it's also like, what can I do to get through my adult life? So
Yeah.
I think that while I do find a lot of fulfillment in what I do as far as teaching, it is also a job, and it is something that I have chosen to do because it does, pay my bills.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Um, so how so with dance both being like a passion and a career, not just a
Yes.
career, but like your full time, what like
Yes.
the thing that you're doing forever,
Yes.
for now.
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't want to like put words in you to force you into dance forever. But
Yeah.
so how do you maintain that balance between doing dance as a passion versus like a career? Like how do you find that middle ground?
Yeah, I think we're all struggling to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think I noticed that because it is both, it is a job and a passion, it's so easy that it can really overtake your life. And I've noticed that just even with teaching and choreographing, it can feel like
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of like, unpaid work. There's a lot of work that needs to be done outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
So and meanwhile I am still dancing now, so it's finding the balance of teaching and also training and dancing for myself. And finding that balance is tricky. I've definitely toned it down since I was younger. I've really taken breaks, and I've acknowledged when my body is tired, and I let myself take those breaks in order to recharge.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's tricky. You do need to definitely see that this is your job and this is your career. So sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do.
Yeah. And
um,
yeah.
yeah, so I think outside of just work, I do try to find pockets of time for myself, whether that's
Hmm.
just improvisation for a few minutes or finding time to paint in my apartment.
Hmm.
I think those little moments allow me to continue working in a passionate way.
And like you said earlier too, having to understand like the reality of like being a dancer in this kind of industry.
Yes.
Um, yeah. And it seems like you have a very like realist approach to being a professional dancer. And I find that when, or something that should be the case is, dancers should know from the get-go that it's going to be hard to find opportunities to perform. And
Yes.
especially professionally, like when you're a student, it's like, oh yeah, I have this and I have this and I have that. And I can't even speak for that because that was not my experience. But but it's a lot easier as a student to be able to establish yourself, I guess. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's something that I try not to. I am definitely a realist in that
Hmm.
sense, but I try to still be encouraging of people who want to pursue that. But I definitely just let them know, especially students, because they're younger or because they haven't had as much experience. I just always let them know, like, this is going to be difficult, and this is it's a
Yeah.
creative lifestyle that you are going to have to be very malleable to. And
Hmm.
so I think it's just important knowing that moving into this field.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that is all the questions I have for you. But is there anything else you wanted to, talk about or anything else you wanted to say to the people?
I mean, not too much. I think, um, yeah, I think that this a career in the arts is so beautiful, and at times it can feel very lonely and very difficult. But
Hmm.
I think also it's important for all of us to acknowledge the beauty in what we're doing, and
Hmm.
acknowledge and see our talents as not this burden that we have to
Hmm.
carry around, and really just and rely on each other as well, and just find beauty in those connections, as small as they may be, because they really can carry us. And just be flexible, just really, and really trust in yourself, and really you just really have to believe in yourself, and really leap into those situations without fear. And
Hmm.
obviously we're going to have doubts and we're going to be fearful, but i think I think something that I've learned now is really just going for it,
Hmm.
and trying to put aside your own self-doubt. And you'll
Hmm.
also enjoy the experiences that you're having more if you choose to step forward with that foot.
Absolutely. Great statement. I actually do have one more question, and
Yeah.
that would be, so if you were to change anything about the dance industry, the dance world, anything about dance as a whole, or specifically, what would that be?
Oh gosh. Okay. I think the one thing I would change about the dance industry at large is, I always say that if I in my kind of fantasy world, I think that the dance world is so heavily focused on who we are on paper,
Hmm.
instead of just seeing who we are as people in the room, and what we're bringing to the room. And I think the art industry in general is so much like other careers, in the sense that it is it is a lot about where you've been and who you've been
Hmm.
with. And I think that, while I understand that that is logistically something to consider. I think that a lot of opportunities are missed, and a lot of I think it's just very limiting for a lot of people in the art world. If they don't fit a certain box, then they're limited to said opportunities. So
Mm-hmm.
I think something that I would change in the dance industry in particular would be to open those doors a bit more, and to not
Yeah.
focus so much on labels and on where we're coming from, or where we're going, and really just acknowledge the person that's in front of you without any of those decorations.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great that's a great perspective on that. Now, before we end the episode, if anyone is looking to find you like on social media, do you have any social media that you would like to advertise on here?
Sure. I really only use one form of social media, and that's Instagram.
Hmm.
Um, and my Instagram social media handle is Bayan_Rayleigh. So it's just my the first letter of both of my names,
Hmm.
Ryan Bailey, just reversed. And that's just because there are like 5 million Ryan Baileys, and that was the
Hmm.
only iteration of the name that I could
Hmm.
put there. So yeah, I post a lot of my artwork, my paintings, my clothing designs, my dancing. I, kind of just use that as my little art advertisement platform.
Hmm. Well, cool. I will also put like a link to that like in the episode description so people can just
Yeah, cool.
hit the thing, hit
Hit the
hit
link.
hit the link. Yeah. Um so that does we are now at the end of this episode of Dissecting Dance Kicking It with Ren. Thank you, Ryan, for speaking with us about your, experiences being in the dance industry and especially having dance as a full-time career. People definitely need to hear like the realistic side of being a professional dancer. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Alrighty. I don't know how to sign off, but I'm just going to say bye to the people. Bye, people.
People.
Thank you for watching this episode of Dissecting Dance Kicking It with Ren podcast. If you can hear the wonderful background music, those are water bottles. This is your sign that you should relax and drink some water. Anyways, a new episode will be uploaded every other Thursday. Thank you for watching.